Live streaming is on.
So I am live streaming to YouTube now. And get going. There's just so much. I don't know if this was because this is a Six of Spades week, which is the card of fate. I don't know if that's why I've been getting so many messages, but I'm getting so many messages. I was just telling my mom that 2 days ago, I was getting a lot of messages about the Queen of Clubs, but I wanted to wait till a Queen of Clubs day before I talked about it. So I hope I don't forget anything. I hope it just kind of comes back to me. But it wasn't bad stuff. It was actually very good stuff, like real good stuff. And I was like, oh wow, yeah, I really need to talk about this. But I was like, I'll save it. But yeah, there's a lot of crazy energy out there. And we're all going through some similar kind of energy. And I wanted to talk about that. A lot of people don't understand the way that I do predictions. It's not so much necessarily always looking at the cards of the person. I spend a lot more time looking at the cards, the universal cards. And it's hard for an astrologer to necessarily look at the universal cards universal charts, because astrologers have so much King of Spades going on that they got to know things exact. So they tend to be like, I need to know, oh, what is the official date of this and what is the official date of that. And we have more flexibility in cardology because every date is connected to the official date. You know what I mean? Every major date. So if you wanted to do a reading on someone in cardology and all you had was the date they gave birth to their kids, guess what? You could use that date to read them. You don't have to be so specific. You don't have to know the time and all of that other stuff. And when you don't have to be so specific, you have more flexibility and room that astrologers don't have. But this is the thing: astrology could work just like cardology. You know, it really could. You don't really necessarily have to have the exact information. People think you do, but you don't. Um, if you spent more time looking at the reverse of the situation, meaning how do instead of let me see, how do you put it, what type of energy does this person's natal chart say that they're receptive to, you know what I mean, how their perspective of approaching things, because the reality of it is we all experience the same experiences but from different perspectives. That's the reality of it. And if you look at it more from a universal approach, like we're all one kind of approach, just having different experiences within that one, then you'll see things a little bit differently. People tend to like to think that they're just the only pebble on the beach, like my grandmother used to say, and they're not. You know, and I think that this election is one of those experiences that helped us to see how tightly intertwined we are and how we receive it and how we receive things. And that's where we're moving towards. The universe is trying to show us how tightly connected we are. Eventually we're going to all connect as a family, but we're still not there because we still got to heal our individual families. So this decade is a family decade, which is a Four of Hearts, but we're still going to be somewhat segmented or segregated into sub families until we actually make it to that point where we could be a larger family. And you notice that you see a lot of the themes that of people who follow Republicans. Oh, I don't want to be a globalist. If we're all going to eventually come together, then what are we going to be? Globalists, right? So is that necessarily a bad thing? You know, so we've thrown up so many fears. There's so many fears about so many different things that we created so much complication And the idea is to simplify things, especially during this 4 decade. It's about simplifying things. The 3 decade is about complicating things, making things more complicated. During this last 3 decade, we've come up with all types of new and complicated terms for people. Now you have people who don't want to be called men and women or gender. They want to be called, what do you call it? Oh, God, so many of them that, so many different classifications have come out of gender now. And that came out in the last decade. And what was it? It was a 3 of Hearts decade. So to be totally honest, that's a situation of where we grow, because 3s are ruled by Jupiter, but it's also complication. It's not simple anymore. Now it's not about men and just women anymore. Now it's like binary, non-binary, da da da. Now it's complicated, and that's the 3 of Hearts. And that's the 3 energy in general. But now we're in this 4 of Hearts decade, and 4s are about eliminating complications and making things simplistic again. Simple. It's also about getting down to what's practical. The 3 of Hearts kind of deviates from practicality because it's very creative. But creativity at times is not practical. A lot of times it's not practical. Practical deals with your basic 3s: food, clothing, and shelter. So dealing with those practical things, which a lot of people suffer from because they're so creative. They're so creative that they can't deal with the practical things in life. And they even fear it, because what? They fear being boxed in. They fear being tied down. They fear being trapped. So now we're at the junction of a decade. It's clear that there will be a lot of fears at the junction of a decade, because you're leaving behind one pattern that's built up over 10 years, at 10 years, and now you're going into a whole new one. You got to build a whole different type of foundation for yourself in the next decade. And some people are very fluent and they do well under these switches, and other people don't. They don't do well in these switches. It just sets off their fear. They're like, what next? What's coming? And their imagination gets crazy, and they start thinking of all of these scenarios, and boom, guess what? Thought is creation. And you are creating now these scenarios. You're creating it because you're going out and doing things based off of the fear that you have. When a terrorist goes out to bomb up a bunch of people, they're doing it out based off of a fear that they have. So now we're at the junction of a new beginning again, like I said, and a new decade. And now we have people who will deal with their fears because they don't know what it looks like. Now, if you were a numerologist or a cardologist, then you could know what this decade would look like. But they don't know what it looks like. So they're like, oh my God, the energy is changing. You can feel the shift. And when you can feel the shift, it evokes different fears in people. And yes, and some people do some stupid things based off of fears. So a lot of this has to do with the shift of decades, the shift into where we're going, what we're leaving behind, and where we're going into. Some people like to look too far down the line. They like to look way into, they were in the age of Aquarius and we shift into this. It's like a lot. So they spend so much time trying to get detailed information about something that's so far down the line when they're missing what's right in front of their face. So another thing I wanted to talk about today too is why a lot of astrologers would be off base. Saturn moving into Aquarius, right? And Aquarius is ruled by what? Uranus. Well, some say Saturn and Uranus co-ruler, but it's ruled by Uranus, and Uranus rules astrology, right? So now you have Saturn moving into the domicile of astrology. Now it's in its home because the co-ruler or ancient ruler is Saturn anyway. So it's actually, not a bad place. However, it's definitely bringing a lot of tests and challenges to astrologers, right? And what it's really, really, really dealing with is everything on Earth, by the way, deals with values. This is a 5 planet, and it's a material planet, and it's driven by your values, right? And Saturn comes around to test your values all the damn time. You think you want this, Saturn will give it to you and becomes a burden, or Saturn won't give it to you, or deny you of it, make you work harder to get it, those types of things. But what it does is it really solidifies and crystallizes what is real. You know what I mean? So it's like, what am I really willing to commit to, right? So if you're an Uranian person and you're all over the place and you just can't commit to anything, it's definitely going to show in your predictions. It's going to show. You know what I mean? It's going to show in your conversations. It's going to show in your lives. It's going to show everywhere that you're just all over the place. And you don't. And unfortunately, when you're moving into a 4 decade, which is really kind of conservative, if you're not coming forth with something that you're really willing to commit with, I would suggest you don't even bring it public. You know what I mean? To put it like blunt, a lot of people just going to look plain old crazy. And what that's going to do is going to send people away. People are going to, because when you're dealing with practical matters, like your livelihood is threatened, your food is threatened, your job is threatened, your home is threatened. You don't care about that shit. You know what I mean? You really don't. What do you start caring about? You start caring about the practical matters again. If it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. I can't feed my family conspiracy theories. So we getting down to the nitty gritty of reality. Like reality, it's like reality check. Reality check, you know, is nice. I was all into this, but now reality check. What you gonna do? What grounded on? How you gonna get grounded in all this chaos? Because again, even with an attempt to ground people, people get even more crazier. Because some people feel that attempt to ground you is impeding your freedom. But this is the thing: you can't just be bouncing off the walls if you live in a fishbowl with a bunch of fish, because you make it harder on everybody else to live, right? If you just bouncing off walls, you have to learn how to get along with other people. And it doesn't matter what you think and what you feel and believe on the inside. What matters is how you interact and respect and, on the outside. Period. Because I know we all like to do readings and we all like to dig, but everybody has their own personal spiritual space and privacy, right? So, you don't go reading somebody's thoughts 24/7 a day. You don't know what type of craziness they may think in a day, or what type of thoughts go through their mind and this and a third. We hope we don't have thought crime. We hope we don't get to that point, right? So you don't do that. And that's why I say, to sit and to think that somebody may be doing XYZ and you have no proof, you have no victims, you have no nothing, you just suspect, but you don't have anything to go off of. It only makes you crazy. That's when that 5 of spades kicked in. Now you just a stalker and you're just negative because you don't even know. And it robs you of your personal peace and your personal ability to be able to live your best life. It robs you of all of that. So at the end of the day, you're going to be the only one that's going to be fucked up. Nobody else. So we're coming to that kind of practicality where we're going to have to decide what's more important, your peace of mind, 4 clubs, or your pursuit of the unknowns, spurred by your fears and your suspicions and your doubts and all that other stuff. So I hate to get up on a soapbox about that, but that's where we are. It's literally where we are. And you can tell because when you see the sense of relief, when somebody just is as Uranian as our last president was, and you see the sense of relief when people that he's just coming out of the picture, there's a shift. It doesn't matter if he won or lost, there's still a shift. There's a mega shift going on in people's values and what they desire and what they don't desire. And that's why we're really here. It wouldn't even matter if it was somebody else in his place. We're here because we're at the end of a 3-year heart cycle, and which was a cycle of indecisive values, confusion, and creativity, and just one big playground. And now it's time to put it all together into something that we really want to live in. So it's affecting us on a microcosmic level and a macrocosm, macrocosm and a microcosm. Somebody said Biden won under a retrograde. Biden's whole entire life is almost essentially like a retrograde. He's an underdog. He has a 6 of diamonds in Neptune. I have a 6 of diamonds in Jupiter, so I know how that feels. He's an underdog. So it's like when you're an underdog, it feels like you get this close and then something comes up, an obstacle appears. Now, the 6 of diamonds has an 8 of spades in Jupiter, right? So when you're going for your best dreams and to be able to live your best life or the top of the world, you're always going to face some major obstacles that you can have victory, because the 8 is a card of victory. So yes, he's probably used to it. I'm used to it. There's always something. Always supposed to be something, especially as close as he gets. Hey, I'll be there in a second. As close as he gets to the top, there's going to be something waiting for him. And when you have those cards and you're that type of person, you're very much used to it. This man is how old? 77 years old. This has been his whole life. So it's not necessarily that things are going to flip. It means you're going to face an obstacle. He's going to face an obstacle. We all know that. He knows that. You know what I mean? But again, what I explained is that he's on his birthday, he goes into his Neptune period. You know what I mean? And your Neptune cycle in your life is supposed to be the time when you kind of just get some rewards in the year and stuff like that. You finally can get those rewards that you've been striving for your whole life. And obviously he's been striving for something major because he was vice president at one point. And, nobody really wants to probably be vice president. He probably want to be president, right? But he finally is reaching this point, and he has a 6 of diamonds, which denotes delays. The 6 of diamonds is the card of delays, in your delay in your your life, a life, a destiny. It's a destiny moment. You're about to hit something that you're destined to do, and there's going to be some delays. There's going to be some obstacles, and that happens on his birthday. That he goes into that cycle with that card. I know a lot about that card because, like I said, that is my Jupiter card, and I came into that card when I turned 38. And life got increasingly more difficult for me. It got harder. It got delays, etc. You know what I mean? And we're gonna see what he's cut out to do. You know what I mean? However, the 6 of diamonds is also the card of the word president, like I said. It is also the card of the White House, because the White House birthday is actually November 1st, 1800. I think that's the birthday of the White House, which is a 6 of diamonds day. So when I saw that, I was like, okay, he's about to be a 6 of diamonds. He's likely going to be living in the White House, and he's likely going to die there because he's in his death cycle. The Neptune years is also your death cycle. It's when you're an old man, and it's your last years on Earth, That's what it also represents. So, and the reason why I point to death a lot when I'm talking about this is because Kamala's card, she's a 2 of clubs, and that's a death card. So when she shows up, somebody gonna die. I'm not saying it's him, but when a 2 of clubs shows up, damn sure believe somebody's about to see their maker. You know what I mean? And if there's a bunch of old people around, I feel sorry for them because it's one of them. That's just the reality of it. And her transformation card is King of Spades, which is God. The top. You know what I mean? So it's like she shows up, she gets an opportunity to move up the ladder. She gets an opportunity to stepping into a position of power, which is also what this decade is about, because the transformation card is the Queen of Clubs. And I'm going to get into that too. That's why I said I was going to do that live tomorrow. But I know I'm probably going to talk about the Queen of Clubs, because the Queen of Clubs plays a huge part in this. The Queen of Clubs is why you saw someone like Stacey Abrams, why she's now being celebrated, because she's a Queen of Clubs. She's a 9 of Clubs, but she's a Queen of Clubs. That's her archetype. So she's a Queen of Clubs. So you're going to look around and see a lot of Queen of Clubs stepping up into positions of power this decade and actually getting some rewards. But don't be jealous. Don't be mad or anything like that, because these clubs women have actually been going through it the last decade. And so, you know what I mean? It ain't been a ball of fun. Now, some clubs, some Queen of Clubs, and the Queen of Clubs is that whole energy. When you're talking about Black girl magic, that's Queen of Clubs. And the reason why I say that is because the Queen of Clubs sits in a Mars position to the King of Spades in the King of Spades line, right? Dead smack in the middle is the Queen of Clubs. And because I've talked about it before, when you're talking about really and truthfully, according to the God spread, the woman is the God, because the male position, which is the Mars, traditionally is occupied by a feminine card, a queen, right? So it says that if you want to look at that King of Spades, the most powerful of the King of Spades would be a woman, and in particularly would be a clubs woman. And that's scary because it's sitting in the Mars position. So men are going to naturally fear it. They're going to naturally be scared as hell of that. That's not going to be what they want. And that is the reason why we have patriarchy, to keep that in check. That's why we have patriarchy, to keep that in check. It's only fear. It's simply fear. That's not what they want. So what happens with the Queen of Clubs is that, or clubs women, is that they rule a workplace. They do very well because they have a 10 of spades. They have the potential to really do some wonderful things in the workspace, but they have the eye of the King of Spades on them constantly. So it's always criticism. It's always whoever's going to be the first on the chopping block is going to be the Queen of Clubs. So she's paranoid because she's sitting in Mars. The boss is the King of Spades. She sits in a Mars position, so she's going to constantly be thinking that she's going to lose her job. She's going to be the first on the chopping block. She's going to be the one that everybody pins everything on. She's going to be the scapegoat, right? So this is the energy that the Queen of Clubs is projecting in her workplace. That's the fear that she has, is that when the shit goes down, she's going to be the one that gets on the chopping block. And it is true. It's true. She likely will be. She would get cut no matter how smart she is. She gonna get fired. I learned a lot about the Queen of Clubs recently through my Queen of Clubs son. I have a Queen of Clubs son, and he always thinks that someone's picking on him. Always. And you can't really say much to him because he'll get super emotional about it and think he's picking on him. And I had to think about it. I'm like, well, he sits in a Mars position to the King of Spades. So naturally, he is going to think that someone is picking on him, and it's going to be harsh, and it's going to be very, very, make him very emotional. So, however, this decade, we're now coming into we're in this 4 decade, which is the 4 hearts. And the transformation card is the Queen of Clubs, I think, to the 4 hearts. Am I right, y'all? I don't know. All of a sudden, I felt like I lost my mind. But let me pull up the 4 of Hearts spread. Hold on, you guys. And I know a lot of you don't have these spreads open, but yeah, Queen of Clubs is the transformation card to the 4 hearts, right? And the Queen of Clubs transformation is the King of Hearts, right? So the Queen of Clubs is like the transformational force throughout this whole decade, and the King of Hearts is the one that helps support her to bring that transformation to us in this decade, right? So what do you got going on right now? You got a King of Hearts, which is Biden, and you got a Queen of Clubs, which is Kamala, right? So them two fit perfectly for this decade, simply because of Kamala, not just necessarily Biden, but he plays a role. He plays a definitive role in the transformation that on Kamala that puts her in a position to be in charge. Now, mind you, this is the King of Spades role of the world. Everybody looks at the American president, regardless of how much power they have, it is symbolic. It is almost next to God on this planet, believe it or not. It is very symbolic. And if a woman makes it into that role, it's like somebody mentioned chess recently. Checkmate. Exactly, it's checkmate. And what does that mean in a sense? Does it mean a bad thing? No. But everything is symbolism, you guys. Everything. Symbolism sets off DNA explosions. And I don't understand why people don't see this and why people don't talk about this and why they ignore it. Symbolism sets off DNA explosions. You know what I mean? So if you wake up with a woman president one day, that is going to set off a whole nother DNA explosions that's almost bigger than the fact that Obama was another DNA explosion with Black folks. A woman there is even bigger. I hate to tell you. And I'm not trying to, it's not a feminist thing. It's just a reality. It's just true. It's just true. So a woman there is a huge checkmate, a huge shift, a huge impact on the world and the way the world thinks. And there's going to be so many changes and changes that people fear. And that's why she's a 2 of Clubs. It's like the ultimate fear card. What do we really fear? No, they don't fear Biden. Yes, we fear a woman president. Hillary didn't even make it. Hillary did not even make it. You got to think about that. She didn't even make it. So now you have a woman who is not only a woman, but she comes from multiple class systems, like a mix of multiple, what they consider lower caste systems, right? So she's from India, her mom is from a lower caste, darker skin caste. The Black side, there's another darker skin caste. You know what I mean? So regardless of whether or not she's Black or not, she represents the lower class, right? So that's just one aspect of it. Then the next aspect of it is she's a woman. So you're now facing the biggest fears and people's biggest fears of forever. And anytime you evoke these kind of fears, it becomes the end of the world. This is the end of the world. It has to be the end of the world because this is what we have prevented from happening for ages. So a lot is going on, and it's a lot deeper than people think it is. It's a lot deeper than racism. It's literally a mother-child healing kind of thing. It's a healing between mother and children. Mother. That's why you just saw Von, what's his name on the news? This man was crying. No macho stuff there. He was crying. So this is a huge crossroads of healing, because the Two of Clubs has a healing card. It has a Eight of Hearts, which is a massive healing, a massive ability to heal. And that card has the ability to hurt too. But let me tell you something. There is no massive hurt healing without massive hurt. You know what I mean? In the past. So that Eight of Hearts that's in her spread for her is victory in healing relationships. That's what she brings. Victory in healing the heart. Victory in healing that relationship between the mother and the child. She has that ability, that capability. And on the man part is the, can you guys close my door, is the forgiveness, the ability to forgive. And that's a big thing that's kind of coming up too. I'm doing a live. Can you close my door? The big thing that's coming up is the ability to forgiveness. Can Biden, someone asked, can Biden do the work of a healing? We're all going to play that role. It's going to bounce off of everybody. You know what I mean? That healing thing right now is going to start. I believe it's going to start. But again, we're going to deal with some of the biggest fears that people have ever had, and what they're going to do to prevent things from happening. What they're going to do to force the hand. And that's one of the things we were talking about tonight, because I was telling people I definitely feel that there is like a 9/11 type event coming our way that is even worse than 9/11, I think. That kind of thing. You know what I mean? There's definitely something, and people sensing these events coming, or like projecting these fears on this presidency and this election and stuff like that. No, there's some stuff coming, but it ain't necessarily created by quote unquote that. This is generated by people's fears, fear of the unknown. What does it look like on the other side of this? You know what I mean? And there's people out there who are stoking those fears of the unknown. Someone says the reparations figure into the healing. Absolutely. Financial healing is a big thing. The Six of Diamonds, which is the card that Biden is going to become on his birthday, is a card of financial reckoning. You know what I mean? Like, we got to pay back financially what we owe. You know what I mean? So, but we've already been leading up to that, and I've already been seeing it. The financial reckoning is already beginning to happen on different levels. It's just that if it doesn't happen the way people imagine it's going to happen, they just ignore it. They don't think that it's happening. They don't think that it's possible. But I damn sure seen it happen. I'm seeing it happen. It's not going to happen in the way that you think it's going to happen. Gradually over time, it's going to happen in different ways and going to be expressed in different ways. It's still going to be dependent upon you stepping up and taking the opportunity to collect. Period. So, and there's all types of people that can collect. You know what I mean? I mean, yeah, there's reparations for slavery. There's also reparations for just women in general that have not earned the same amount of money as their male counterparts doing the same job. Stuff like that. It's all different types of levels of reparations. But now it's up for the taking, because of these superior conjunctions that are taking place are the indicator of the time that we in, that we can get it, right? Because remember, the forming of the United States was a time when there was still reckoning with the relationships with the European countries. You know what I mean? And they were at the point like, we can get it. We can take it. Now we have land. This land belongs to us. It doesn't belong to these countries in Europe, even though they took it for somebody else. Now, it doesn't belong to France. It doesn't belong to Spain. It doesn't belong to none of these countries. And they took over from where they left off. So now you have a shift to whereas this land is going to get taken again. Now, each time we take, we grow, right? Each time we do, we grow more together, more humane about it, etc. So, and this is what Saturn in Aquarius is going to be like, the guard that makes sure that things are done more equitable in an equitable manner. This is the guard that's standing there. It's like, okay, I'm looking over these changes, these transformations that are going to take place, and I want to make sure that they're fair. You know what I mean? And fairness really is just about slowing things down. Slow it down a little bit so that, we can carefully examine what the outcome is going to be and what the consequences are of these things. So anyway, in the tech age, so there's a lot of innovation at the same time. So again, this is how I came to my conclusion that of who was going to be in the presidency, because of where we are, where we. When I'm looking at the cards, I'm looking at where are we right now, where are we headed, where are we going, what are we doing, what's going on. I said before that people of color and the Nine of Diamonds is going to be sitting in the Pluto position for a while. And people ask me that. This is on the Grand Solar Spreads in Cardology. It's a little bit advanced, but we're sitting, there's a Pluto position, which is a transformation position that actually leads you up to a wonderful place. It leads you up to getting everything exactly you want, but you got to make the changes that are necessary in order to step up to that next level. And in the meantime, you're going to be provoked and poked and even killed and murdered. You know what I mean? So you're talking about as a people, there's going to be death. Yes, death is going to be a part of it. And we're going to be looking at whoever's in power as the person that is responsible for this and responsible for that, when in reality, the energy calls for it. Whatever the energy is calling for, it is going to happen. So, but in the midst of all of this, there's a lot of good stuff coming, you guys. There is a lot of good stuff. We have a Five of Hearts this year in Pluto with the King of Diamonds, and I foresee that as definitely prison reform. So prison reform is coming. People being let out of prison, large amounts of people being let out of prison, and prison reform is definitely coming. That's a major thing. Five of Hearts a lot of times deals with prison. You know what I mean? And the reason why it's so rough on men is because the Five of Hearts, I believe, has a Nine of Hearts in Mars. You know what I mean? So when you look at these spreads and you look at the placements, it explains exactly why things are harder on certain things. So when I want to look at what's going on with men, I look at Mars. When I want to look at what's going on with women, I look at Venus. And the Five of Hearts has a Nine of Hearts in Mars. But I'll tell you this: if you're a man, I'm doing a collage. If you're a man that seeks help next year, mentorship, counseling, healing for mental health issues, all of that, that's going to be available to you. You know what I mean? And that's going to be your best way out. So if you are teetering on activity that can get you in trouble, there's going to be options that come about for you rather than just throwing you in jail. There's going to be options that evolve that are going to help you to get on the right path and get on the right track. These are going to be the changes and stuff. And not to say that there's not going to be jail. I think the biggest jail that is going to be coming up is, believe it or not, like family financial stuff. You're going to have to get it together. Family financial, because we're headed for such a financial crash that everybody's going to be looking for scapegoats that they can extract money and extract resources from to take care of these families, because family is the big thing of the decade. It's a Four Hearts decade, so it's all about family. So if you have family, and which means that if you have children that you're not financially taking care of, that could be a problem. And I said that before. I'm going to pause real quick, and if anybody has any questions, I'll take some questions. So these are people from the group right now. If you guys have any questions, you could put up your hand, and I'll take some questions from you guys. Y'all mighty quiet. Wow, no questions?
I have a question. So,
Okay.
how should we be positioning ourselves? Like when we go to our spreads, when we look at our cards and we're looking at like the United States for the next 4 years and thinking about all of the repair that needs to be done. Forget healing. First, we got to repair before we can even begin the healing process. What are the things that we should be looking for so that we can get direction?
Well, I'll tell you this. There's not going to be enough time to be trying to repair everything on the outside. You know what I mean? There's going to be way too much going on to just be like, well, forget about the healing. I'm going to go to no. This is about healing. You know what I mean? On a spiritual level, it's about healing, and that's what's most important. There's going to be a lot of destruction. Just a lot of just throw it out the window. What doesn't work, throw it out the window. It's going to be a lot of that. But when I'm reading, and I think you know this, I spend less time reading my personal and more time reading the universal and seeing where I fit in the universal picture. You know what I mean? So if you're studying cardology, you want to study the hell out of the United States chart if you live in the United States. Even if you don't live in the United States, we do a lot of business for the United States. You want to know everything that's going on in the next 10 years in the United States, right? And the next thing that you want to study is that Four of Hearts, because this is the decade. You want to know everything you need to know about a Four of Hearts, because you got to move like a Four of Hearts. You're going to have to, pretty much you're walking the path of the Four of Hearts right now. And some of us will walk the path kicking and screaming, and some of us will walk it, more knowledgeable, but you're walking the path of the Four of Hearts. And if you're a Four of Hearts, you're a teacher. You're the star. The spotlight is on you. You can help people. You can set the precedence for what this is supposed to look like. Same thing with the Queen of Clubs. Gina?
So you had made a post a couple of days ago about December and the being locked down even more. What makes you? What are you seeing?
The United States this year has a King of Spades in Saturn, and December is a King of Spades month. And we all know what Saturn is. But hold on one second. I'm going to pick up the United States. But the underlying card, which is the vertical card, is the Eight of Hearts, which is actually pretty good because that's a card of healing, right? So, but the Eight of Hearts is also the card of power. You know what I mean? Hate. There's hate in the Eight of Hearts on the negative side. So the thing of the matter is, when you're looking at the Saturn card, you're going to naturally experience the negative sides of those cards. There's no getting around it. When anything falls in Saturn and cardology, there's no getting around the negative side. You're going to experience the negative side. It's going to be a little bit harsh. You know what I mean? And somebody could get hurt. Now, the King of Spades is a very, very serious card. That's somebody thinking that they have enough power to hurt people and harm people on a major scale. That's the, I think I'm God. I'm going to play God. I'm going to do something drastic. You know what I mean? And that's not really a disaster kind of card, so to speak. That's more like an assault kind of card. So again, that's what made me feel as though there's going to be some type of large scale event. Another thing that adds to that is the Five of Hearts Pluto. We know that the Five of Hearts is also a death card. This is a card that'll rip you away from your family suddenly. Whether putting you in the ground or just sending you somewhere else, it'll take you away from your family. We have it in Pluto this year.
And restricting our freedom.
Yeah, and restricting our freedom as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also next to the King of Diamonds. So I always look at the cards in pairs to see what the result is, to see what's going on. Now, we got those two kings there, and the state that has both of those two kings is New York. You got New York State here, and you got New York City. So I said a while ago that you really want to watch out for New York City and New York, just New York in general. And this is another thing. This is another thing. When you look at the cards, even when they involve the country and stuff like that, you also should take into account your personal life. What's going on in your personal life that fits in those cards, right? So my daughter lives in New York, and she just so happened to be coming down for the holidays, right? She's bringing everybody, right, with her. And suddenly her plans got pushed up even further. So now she's going to be down here even longer, like just out of the blue, right? The ironic thing is my combination card with my daughter is the King of Spades, right? So I'm like, okay, this is something to do with New York. So she's coming, and we'll add some more stuff to what's going on with New York. A lot of people, there was a mass exodus going on. You know what I mean? So that's something else you want to look at, the fact that a lot of people were moving out. It's a lot of empty real estate opening up there, which is also a Five of Hearts. So it's almost like confirmation that they're already undergoing this. So the question is, if they were going to undergo this at a worse scale, it would be likely during that either during September, which September just started the moving away, or it'd be during December, which is that King of Spades, which is even more critical. So my theory of why a lot of this stuff is happening is because we're being dispersed. The Four of Hearts is about getting up with your soul family, right? And some people just won't move. Some people suffer. They stay in the same suffering position with the same suffering people. They don't want to be around those people. They don't want to be in these relationships, but they will not move. You know what I mean? So they're calling out, somebody help me, my spirits. They're praying to God, please help me out of this situation. Please help me with this situation. I'm suffering. I want something better. All of those prayers are heard. But if you don't do what you're supposed to do to, influence that, or, make the changes you're supposed to make, what happens? The hammer comes down on you out of nowhere. And you're feeling persecuted because you're like, oh my God, why is this being ripped away from me? Because you want to change. You don't want it anymore. So places that have a hard time making those changes, people who have a hard time making those moves, they're going to be highly impacted in 2021. Highly impacted. Yes, because the universe, the spirit, or whatever you want to call it, it's not no nice, lovely, fluffy thing here on Earth. We live on a 5. You know what I mean? This is a 5 planet. It's an odd number. It's lots of changes. 5s can be some very violent changes. You see it by the presence of storms, hurricanes, tornadoes, all of those different things. It ain't nothing nice. And you can say all you want to. You can sit around and say that, everything is just peachy keen and it should be nice and we should just all get up. That's just not the reality of this planet. This planet is more like a video game than it is some nice blah, blah, blah. It's more like a video game. You know what I mean? We got a little bit of this and a little bit of that. That's the reality of it. And guess what? It could be fun. Like video games. It could be fun. If you were to peer in the minds of most people, I don't care how much of the niceness they project on the outside, they got a lot of crazy shit going on in their head. We're playing a game. And you could do one or two things. You could play the game or the game will play you. Everybody knows when you play a video game, and if you haven't pushed pause and you just put that game down, you're probably gonna die. It doesn't care that you not playing anymore. You say you're not playing. If you didn't push pause, you're still in the game. And it's ironic that, I mean, it's not ironic, but that's the Five of Hearts. The Five of Hearts is the gamer. It's the game. The game of life is what the Five of Hearts is. So that tells you that it's about to kick up. So you like get in where you can fit in. You know what I mean? You play to win, or you get scared and you drop out the game and you die, you get your butt kicked or whatever. I personally love gaming. So I play the game, you know what I mean? Because there's levels to this. So, you know, that's how serious it is. It's really, really, really serious. And, you know, to get back to the election and to get back to the whole, there's a lot of common sense components to politics. It doesn't matter whoever wins. It's up to you to participate in politics to craft what your reality is going to look like. If you think that people are just doing this for you and you have no part in it where you're crafting the reality, then you are going to get it bad. You're going to not, you know what I mean? There's no one you're going to be able to trust that you put in an elective office because you're not doing your part. I keep hearing and I keep seeing people post it's like, well, they're not going to give you anything. They're not going to do anything for you. Biden's not going to do anything for you. What the hell is this, welfare? Well, are we mistaken about what this position is and what's supposed to be happening? I think so. Are we uneducated about the process and the government and stuff like that? I think so. But that Five of Hearts is like, we ain't gonna have a whole lot of time to stay ignorant about things. So with the Queen of Clubs in such an exalted position, this also taps into the Queen of Clubs of everybody. We all got a Queen of Clubs. We all have it, that energy somewhere hidden in our chart. So that means that you're going to have to be intuitively led. The Queen of Clubs is about being led by your intuition. It's not about being led by cardology, astrology, or anything else. It's about listening and being led by intuition. It's about aligning and governance, with one another, working hard work. Queen of Clubs has always had a lot of hard work, making sacrifices. That's Mother Teresa, Queen of Clubs. You know what I mean? But it's not a impoverished person. Don't ever think that Mother Teresa was poor. You know what I mean? So it's a lot of money. It's a lot of benefits to being that, or to tapping into that energy. But you're going to be in the spotlight more than ever. But this time, hopefully, you'll be empowered. You won't feel like you're a victim. Instead, you'll be in the spotlight as someone in power. Thus, you have a Kamala Harris, which is the Queen of Clubs, holding one of the highest positions in the country. Someone said, what is the positive side of Biden being in office for melanated people? This is the thing. Everything is a wake-up call, right? So the wake-up call right now is participation, right? Like, I truly feel like this is with the statement where they talk about the meek shall inherit the earth. We're actually in the middle of that right now, right? But does it just get handed over to you so you can do the same shit as other people did and be just as mean to people and treat people bad and stuff like that? No. It gets harder on the next set of people who come into power. It gets harder each and every time. And how do you learn? You learn from the previous set of people in power. I don't care who they were. I don't care if they're white, purple, gray, or whatever. That's how you learn from the previous people who are in power. So you don't make the same mistakes that they made. So you have to pick up. Number one, you have to interject yourself. You have to be willing to take responsibility. You have to see what works with working with other people in society. There's been many people that decided to just go off and segregate amongst one another, and it just went to the shitter. You know what I mean? It's like, if you can get along with someone else on the outside, that's a better indicator of how much you can get along with just in general, people in your closer circle. So you have to learn how to get along. You have to have a basis and a template for getting along. And that's why we have society. That's why we have governments. That's why we have these things like that, to help people to get along. It's not necessarily the systems that are in place that are all the way bad. It's the people. Someone is asking, someone said those who do not learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Exactly. We have a lot of people who think that taking over the spots that these people have is the answer, right? But are you ready to take over the spot that these people have? Are you ready to do better than other people? Or you just think you're going to take it over and somehow magically everything is going to be okay? No, remember, this is a game. This is a game. This is a game made to be challenging. So it's not going to be that easy. If you want to see what it's going to look like, and you don't want to play games to test it out, because some of us are gamers and we play games every day, so we know what gaming is about. If you don't know, watch Hunger Games. You know what I mean? Watch Hunger Games. Go back and watch Hunger Games. You've probably seen it a while ago, but watch it. Because Hunger Games denotes that people are fighting for, they're actually competing for their necessities. And that's what I told you this decade is about. It's about necessities. Food, clothing, shelter. Food, clothing, shelter. A lot of people have been focusing on reading The Art of War. That's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. You're reading The Art of War because you want to participate in a war. Or you fear that you're going to have a war. Or you think you're going to have a war. It's a game, but it doesn't necessarily have to be a war. Learn from Black intellectuals and artists who fought in previous. Let me tell you something. Elders are going to be very important this decade. This decade has a 6 of Spades and Saturn. We've been getting away from elders because the last decade was a 3 of Hearts. It's all about the young people. It's all about the millennials. We don't care. We don't have to listen to anybody. 4 of Hearts is different. 4 of Hearts is about the elders. Like, okay, all of this went down in your time. Or let's go back to when you were in this time. What was it like? The 6 of Clubs. We're displacing the 6 of Clubs in America this year, which is the card of reminiscing, going back, because people have forgotten. They don't know what they've forgotten. Like people, I talk about this till I'm blue in the face about the 90s. People forgot how bad the 90s were. They forgot. They literally, all we remember is hip hop. So the kids think that it was just one big old hip hop party and that's it. Tupac, Biggie, everybody else. Oh, it was fun. I even remember the fun. But it was very violent and very dangerous during those times. You could not go to a party without it getting shot up. You couldn't go to somewhere without a drive-by. It was bad. It was like the worst you've heard in Chicago, magnified all over the country. But it takes the elders and the older people to talk about that, to give people an understanding about what the time looked like. So that's why you would get a crime bill like you got. Because energy, every action has a reaction. Every action has consequences. So if things get out of control, the laws are going to get out of control. So, you know, this would be
live streaming is on.
This would be a good time to refer back to the past. You know what I mean? And understand that we've come a long way. We have come a long way already. In the next decade, we don't have nearly as much craziness that was going on there. We have another kind of craziness, but you know, you can tell by going into certain neighborhoods now that a lot of that is gone, is fading away. So what you need to do, I think at this point, I'm going to pretty much wrap it up, but at this point, you need to pay attention to the signs, your own personal signs and the signs in general. Where are you being pushed? What are you being asked to do? If you're being asked to be patient, be patient. If you're being asked to let go, let go. If you're being asked to move, move. You better do it now. Because Five of Hearts ain't going to be playing with you next year. It's about doing the things that you really need to do and do it fast, or else it's going to be done for you in a way that's not agreeable to you. And somebody can get hurt. You know, so that's what you need to be doing. If you all are listening, and I'll tell you this, another thing, the cardology is about the law of attraction. And my card is the card of everything's going to work out. So whoever's listening to this right now, you're going to be good ultimately. You know what I mean? But what kind of good do you want to be? Do you want to be damaged good? Do you want to be good when you're missing a leg? What kind of good do you want to be? You have the opportunity to craft what kind of good you want to be. What, meaning not just being good, but what type of happy ending do you want in your life? And I know that's a hard question. That's why the Five of Hearts has a Nine of Hearts in Mars, because the Nine of Hearts is a wish card, but a lot of us don't even know what we want. If you ask somebody, what do you want? They can't even answer the question. So imagine that there's a wish genie running around, right? And it's like, what do you want? And you don't know what you want, right? Mars is a real brutal position. The wish is like, the wish genie is listening to you, right? You know, you're like, I want so-and-so to blow up. I want this person to go away. I want this, da, 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 da. And the wish genie is listening to you. Your wish is my command, and just jacking up your life. Or at least you think so. So you're going to have to make the decisions on what it is that you want. What do you desire? What are you open to? What changes do you need to make? And you're going to have to add the faith component, because you're not going to know what's on the other side. It's like YOLO. It's like take a leap. You ain't going to know what's on the other side. So you don't take a leap, you get pushed. And you still don't know what's on the other side, but now you got pushed unwillingly. So I hope that helps a little bit. Just note that, yeah, December, some level of contention. Prepare, always just stay prepared. Get, stock up on some things. Because if some things get shut down, you don't want to have to be without. So stock up on some things. Get in a place. Close your eyes and think about where you would want to be and who you want to be around if something horrible were to happen. You know what I mean? Who you want to be around? Are you where you want to be? Are you in the middle of chaos on a daily basis? Is that where you want to be if the shit hit the fan? You know what I mean? And I'm not saying necessarily it could be like that. There's some pockets that maybe not even going to be affected like that. And especially if you already got a lot of 5 of hearts and 5 of clubs naturally, this ain't going to be no biggie for you. But if you trip out under sudden changes and you just can't cope and you can't deal, it's going to be a problem. If you can't leave things behind in the blink of an eye because you're attached to them and this, that, and the third, it's going to be a problem. If you're attached to being where you are, it's going to be a problem. The 5 of hearts is the gypsy. It's in Pluto. You got to be like a gypsy. You got to be willing to pack your shit and move on to the next level. So anyway, you guys, I'm going to be back on because tomorrow I wanted to talk about the Queen of Clubs because there's a lot of just stuff going on, positive stuff, really. And, the Queen of Clubs and clubs women and just the club energy in general, it's good to be ready for it and be prepared for it because these are the people who are going to be helping other people because that's what you naturally do. If you're a Queen of Clubs or anything in the line of a Queen of Clubs, if you're a Jack of Hearts, if you a 5 of Clubs, you're 3, even the 3 of Diamonds in some aspects. But all of these different cards help people in some way because they have proximity to the Queen of Clubs. See, cardology is also about proximity. If you're in a close line with a card, then you have some of the rays of that card echoing through your life. So you don't necessarily have to be a Queen of Clubs. You have some type of proximity to the Queen of Clubs. It's the same thing. So anyway, you guys, good night. I am going to wrap this up.